Good evening. Welcome to the meeting on November 17th, 2020, a regular session of the Reading City Council. I'd like to go ahead and open with a prayer and our pledge. Please join me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albright?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fish-Escher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico?
Here.
All present. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the council meeting on November 3rd, which were distributed earlier this morning, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. I'd like to welcome our guest speaker for tonight, Mr. Dan Brooks, the City Building Commissioner for the City of Reading. Dan will go ahead and do a presentation of what's happening in his office, followed by a questions and answer session. So Dan, take it away. You're on mute, Dan, sorry.
Unmute. How's that?
That's better.
Okay. After the presentation, you might well wish I've had it on mute. So
we're going to lip read there for a while, huh?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for asking me. I hope we can, get you enlightened on what's going on, and so we'll jump right in. We are operating. Times have been a little slower the last couple of months than it has been, especially since, I would say probably September. It slowed down quite a bit. But right now we are in June. I initiated, I think, as I mentioned the last time I met with you folks, we were needing to catch up. And so in June, instead of having one person there 4 hours a day, 2 days a week, I've got two people, myself plus my associate, in there for 4 hours a day, 2 days a week, at least doing, maybe not in the office, but doing stuff out and about and getting things done and caught up. Plus, we now have a total of 4 people working within the building department. It's myself, John Ulmer, who are the people in place, one inspector plus one additional plans examiner. So that's all coming out of what your annual stipend is. So that there's been no increase in any kind of financial liability to the city. So just so you know, whoever's chair of finance, you can breathe easy. I've got a little rundown, and Carla, where are you? Where is she? There you go. I will get you this information as I emailed you just a few minutes ago. I'll get you this tomorrow. Well, I sent you this, I think. Did you get what I sent you?
I just forwarded it.
Just a few minutes ago. Okay, all right. We broke down, well, first of all, we kind of went ahead and developed our own software so we could keep track of what we were doing a lot better than just, having to go back out and count every permit. Because at the end of the year, just so you know, at the end of the year, we are required to submit a report to the state of Ohio. And in that report, we have to give the total number of permits and break it down into the number of permits per building type, whether that be residential, In commercial, there's several. There's a business, there's retail, there's educational, there's industrial, storage, it goes on and on. There's several. There's like a dozen or more building types. But we have to break that all down. Plus, we have to give them the amount of the estimated amount of construction costs, plus the permit fees. And so that all comes to a very big report. It's about a 7 or 8 page report. And without software, it takes approximately about 2 weeks to put together. So we went ahead and John is my computer guru, so he developed a software that we could, and what you're going to be getting, what you got forward, it was our own version of a spreadsheet that shows what we did. Just so you can see, what the report you got there is through August 1st. We're still working on the rest. However, the number you'll see on your, it says, well, it'll have all, well, you won't have it because it's handwritten, but the all permits, the count's 126. That's up through August 1st. We now have, as of today, we have looked at and issued 159 permits. Okay, so that's in 10 months, so it's about 15, 16 permits per month. Now, out of that, but the numbers here that you'll see are reflect only through August 1st. So as of August 1st, the total amount of permit fees, just building permit fees, was $23,166.80. Zoning was $1,930. And we paid on commercial and residential. Commercial, we need to pay the state of Ohio 3% on all commercial and 1% on all residential. So that third number that says sum, that's $491.86 that we have so far given to the state. That's required by the state. Now we broke it down further for you on commercial permits. Again, this goes to August 1st. The count was 33. We had 33 commercial permits. And of course, the sum of total of the commercial permits is $16,797.80. That's the bulk of the amount that we've totally brought in. And the zoning was $790. Now that's going to increase, obviously, because we're not to the end of the year yet. But the residential, on the residential side, we've had 92 permits. Obviously, you know, we have a lot more permits residentially than we do commercial. And the amount of the permit fees there as of August 1st is $6,369, and the zoning is like $1,100. So that kind of gives you a breakdown as far as what we've brought in so far. Now our activities continue. What we do, and anybody's invited anytime you want to come in and pay us a visit. We'll show you around our spacious offices. But I'm only kidding on that, but it's big enough. We usually get the last few weeks, because I knew this meeting was coming up, we just kind of did an average. We average about 15 phone calls a day on a Tuesday and a Thursday. We get about 15 phone calls. The average phone call takes about 8.5 minutes. And we do all of zoning reviews. We respond to any zoning inquiries that we have. We go out and make visits. And a lot of times people do come in and pay us a visit. Actually more often than you would think. They take some time, because normally when somebody does come in, they're confused about what they are allowed to do, or they want a little clarification of what the code says. And so we sit down and we go over it with them. And I think by the time they leave our office, they have their answer. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear, but nevertheless, they have an answer. And then we respond to inquiries about, basically about, hey, does this guy down the street have a permit? Or what can I do? I want to put in certain business in Reading. Can I put in a lot of them, just an example, kind of put in a body shop on Benson Street? No, you can't. That's not in the zoning code. Car washes, a lot of things like that. It's just that's an example. And of course, we respond to complaints. Actually, when we get a complaint, that takes basically the top shelf, because we try to get them out immediately to take a look at that. So if you add all that time up, it doesn't really leave a whole bunch of time to do the enforcement as much as we'd like. I'll be the first one to admit that the enforcement of the sign code is not very active right now, but we are gaining on that, and I will fill you in here in a few minutes on that. We had a mess. I mean, a total mess. If anybody would have visited our office about a month ago, there was hardly any room to move because we had all of these plans all over the place. And so we came in on days that we weren't supposed to be there, because then, it was quiet, phone didn't ring, and if it did, we didn't answer. So we were able to at least get the files, the drawing files. Now you got to understand, just like, for instance, the school, those plans were big, they were very large. And so and that's just one example of, take the last 3 or 4 years, and all those plans were sitting there in our office. And again, if anybody's been in that health building, which used to be the health building, you really don't want to go upstairs because it is overly packed, and there's just no place to put stuff. So, and we can't really throw anything away unless we get a records commission meeting together so that we can get approved to throw stuff away. There's a bunch of stuff in that building. It's all on the second floor, and that building was designed to be a house, which is about half of the floor load that is required for a building that is now being used for business. So we go in and check out if there's any cracks in the ceiling before we sit down and say, okay, well, it's going to stand another day. So at any rate, I went upstairs and moved some things around, and we were able to put most of the plans back in what used to be the kitchen over there. There was we inherited a file from the caucus room closet that got put into our office over in the conference room. And so what we did, we rearranged drawings in there, put some stuff together, and we worked out a way that we rolled up the stuff. And now at least we have some kind of filing system of old plans. We got 2017, 2018, and 2019 stored. And then the ones that come in like this year are right on top. And we were able to get that in some kind of order. So we feel pretty good about that. It's a lot cleaner, a lot neater, a lot nicer, a lot more professional than it was. So we got that, and we're working on now getting files moved from some of the files starting, and we didn't even try. It'd be impossible. Well, it wouldn't be impossible, but there's not enough time. Whether you work 40 hours a week or not, it still wouldn't catch up by moving all the files from next door into our place. there's a couple reasons, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So what we decided to do starting January 1st is we're going to start our own files down in our office, because if we don't, we can't access information that we have to have, because it all goes next door. So that if somebody comes in or we need a file, if it's kept next door, which is like it is now, we have to physically go over, leave our office, go upstairs, get the file, bring it on back down. And or if somebody comes in with a question or inquiry, same bit, we have to go next door. And that is not exactly a great efficiency of time. If we were being judged on time management, we'd flunk. So we're going to try to change that starting January 1st. We cleared out some file cabinets, some old file cabinets were left over there. So we can, I'm gonna hit Sabrina up for some extra money here for some filing folders, so we can put it in our file cabinets, because we don't have any file folders either. But we're going to change all that the first of the year. The big problem remains is the physical separation from the people who take in the money for the permits, who hand out the applications, who really is the first line people when people come in to apply for a permit, where they come to, which is upstairs on the second floor at City Hall. Then what happens is when they come in, they're sent back down to us. That means the customer, and I look at them as customers or the clients, they come down and then walk next door, and they have to come in our place. And of course, with COVID, which that makes it a little bit even more complicated, because now they got a knock on our door, because we keep that door shut, because we don't let anybody in unless they're wearing a mask. So that way we keep it very safe, and I think you all appreciate that. So we need to work. We need to do something there. I mean, we just need to do something. That's why I'm going to revisit a need that we have. Is as long as it's slow, which is not good for the city of Reading, and I don't anticipate it continuing to be slow. But I'm going to throw one more time out is a part-time intern only during the heavy months, which is usually from April to October. The other times of year, we get along fine. We don't need somebody full-time. We don't need full-time. We don't need anybody there every day. Well, that's what's not every day, all day. So I'm still pounding on that door a little bit. But like I say, we have caught up mainly because it's been really slow. I mean, we've gone this past month. I don't think we've had maybe 3 calls a day. I mean, that's astounding, you know. And we have a couple furnace permits, we have a couple porch permits, a couple fence permits, but nothing of any substantial size. Now, like I say, I'm anticipating that to change. But during that time, the slowdown time, as I said, we've been able to catch up and get things pretty much straightened out, which I'm very happy with. And we're able to now get back on code enforcement, a little bit more of a stepped up program. The signs, that's the big one that's still out there that really needs a shot in the arm as far as enforcement. I have rode around the city myself, and I've been, Linda Fitzgerald and I have ridden around the city a couple times, and we've got our list, and I have roughed out a form letter, and now all we need to do is to apply the addresses to the form letter, and those will probably, hopefully, will go out before Christmas if we can get that stuff together. So everybody will get a nice little Christmas gift a little Christmas greeting from the zoning department in the city of Reading about their illegal signs. Some other things that I won't mention any particular cases, but I'm sure some of you are aware. There's been a couple or three cases of illegal activity that we have. One of them in particular is apparently stopped, actually two, but then the other one is not. And so, and Dave, I need to talk to you about that one. Not tonight, but I need to talk to you about that one. So that's kind of the game plan because we're taking advantage of the slow time to catch up on some of the stuff we weren't able to do. We are, again, I'll come back. As far as a need, we really need to get a certified, complete software program for our department. There are several out there. Patrick and I have talked. We've gotten a couple prices. It's around $2,500 for the initial purchase. And I'm not sure of this, but I think it's $500 a year for maintenance. The one that we had for years, they went out of business, so it's not available anymore. That was several years ago. And like I say, we've been kind of limping along and making our own as we go. Because everybody knows, I understand, money's tight and all that, but we could really use that. Even if the intern doesn't happen, software would be wonderful. And of course, you may or may not be aware of the fact that the building department is sitting in a building that's against every code known to man. Doesn't help when you're trying to enforce the code and telling somebody they got to get their building up to code and they can't walk into our building because it's against code. For instance, how do you get in that building in a wheelchair? Or even if you get in the building, how do you get to the john because the door's not wide enough? And so that's a little embarrassing. And I think it's embarrassing to the city, quite honestly. So on my wish list, if anybody wants to know, hey, we need a new building. Either that or some done with that building. But I'd be more than happy to offer my services free of charge of what my profession is. That's an architect. For just to make a concept of what can be done. But then you can go hire somebody to do it. But I'll be more than happy to give you some ideas of directions to go. But I know it's probably a pipe dream, but hey, it doesn't cost anything to dream, right? So it's just embarrassing, when somebody comes in and they get splinters in their hand because the rail is not right, or the concrete's cracked, or they come up steps, and it's just not a good impression, So now, Tony, you sent some questions to me.
Yes.
That I think, I can answer. The zoning fees, as far as what we charge for zoning.
Yes.
We're going on what was given to us as the fees that were passed on July 10th, 2019. And I can send you these, but I can go over them a little bit. Residential for zoning, just a single family dwelling is $40. Two-family dwelling is $80. Multi-family dwelling is $80 for the first 2 units and $20 for each additional unit. Business will vary anywhere from between $100 and looks like $250, depending upon what it is. They vary. We've got now that we have fees now for variances, which is $150. Our conditional use permits $150 for variance. $250. Appeal to the BZA is $150. And these were all put in, at least, what we've got in our hands. Commercial up to 5,000 square feet is $100. 5,000 to 10 is 150. 10,000 to 15 is 200. And I can get you all these copies of this if you don't have them, or if you want to have them. But 15,000 to 20,000 is 250, and more than 20,000 square foot is $300. That's for a commercial use. That's for zoning only. For all accessory fees, like this is for a fence or walls or signs, sign for zoning. Swimming pools, it's all just a flat fee of $40. That's for zoning, not building. And then there's the special use permits for like sandwich board signs, temporary signs, storage tanks, things like that, various stuff. But that is the zoning fees that we're working on. I hope does that answer your question, Tony?
Yes, thank you, Dan, for taking the time. I appreciate you coming tonight. Always good to see you. And I have empathy for the problems you're having. I guess we've been kicking. But in talking with former Councilman Bob Ashrock, one of my questions was, for a while there, I don't think that our website was putting the correct numbers out there. I don't know if those are the same as you have there, or whether or not we need to take another look at. I realize that's not your responsibility to see what's put on the website, but I think or at least I was under the impression that some of the things that are on the website are not accurate as to what was passed by council at some point in time. And hopefully all those are now being properly promulgated to the residents through that system. And I'm confident that then what you're telling me is that's the current ordinance and the fees that should be charged under the current ordinance. I know we passed some ordinances a while back that were not being exactly applied for some period of time. So I don't know if we were collecting adequately what we should have been getting. So if you could forward those to me, or I'll try to get a look at them, I appreciate that. And thank you for reviewing it and passing it along. So I want to compare the website with what we're charging versus what it's being obligated to the resident.
And then the other question you had, and I guess this is general for everybody, and you may want to ask, somebody ask you at the grocery store or something, or wherever. As far as the timing of how long does somebody have to get something done and when does it expire, right? Tony, you asked that one too. And zoning permits, it's section 12.
I have a resident.
I'm sorry.
I interrupted. I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Well, I had a resident, Mr. Mitch, was asking me about a permit that was, I think you already contacted you. I think you did explain it to me, but I wanted to pass it along, make sure he is aware that the time sequence. So I apologize, I interrupted you. Go ahead and describe what the time sequences are. All residents realize that. I think sometimes they see property, they get a permit, and then it goes on for a long time. They see little or no work occurring, and it detracts from the neighborhood and so forth,
Right. Yeah, and I thank you for the question, because we get those calls once in a while, and but anyway, the zoning, there's and this is what people need to be aware of. The zoning, if a person gets a zoning permit, according to our code 1244.06, they have 1 year to do something with that permit. In other words, if they get, if they have a project and they get a zoning permit and nothing happens for that year, well, their zoning permit goes away. They have to reapply. Or if they get a change of zone, I'm sorry, they get a variance and nothing happens for a year, it goes away. That's according to our code. Now, the catch there is that they don't have to finish the project within a year. They just got to have work being done. Because then after zoning is taken care of, what happens is it flips over to the building code, which is this book here. And the building code then, because a lot of times, and Tony, I think this is the one you were talking about.
Yes.
People will see a project start, then all of a sudden either it drags on for whatever reason, or nothing happens. And so section 105.2 of the Ohio Building Code is pretty clear in the fact that it has to be, there's not a time limit to get it done, but there is a time limit to continue the project, substantially continue the project. If there is no activity in a project that has a permit, I should say no substantial activity in a project for a year, 12 months, then that permit can be pulled. Well, it will be pulled unless the applicant who has the permit comes to us and requests a 6-month extension. They can do that twice. So in other words, if somebody decides to build a garage in their backyard and they maybe they'll dig a hole and let it sit for 6 months, and then they'll put a couple pieces of concrete in the ground, let it sit for another 6 months, that is not substantial work. That's dragging it out. Now, they may have run out of money, or they can't get a contractor, or whatever. If that's the case, they'll have to come to us and tell us why it hasn't gone anywhere. We can give them a 6-month extension, but at that point, they can only do it one more time, and that's it. So if somebody could actually drag a project out for 2 years, from the time they get the permit to the time it's done. But again, if there's a fair amount of progress being made, then you really can't. There's just not a real end limit on the thing, you know. So that's pretty much the answer. It's spelled out in the code.
Obvious. Well, if you're a resident and you're living in a nearby area, and it
Correct.
kind of detracts from the neighborhood, the values, and so forth. But thank you for the information. I had another question I didn't send to you when you get time.
Okay. Yeah, and property maintenance, we don't do property maintenance, but but let me just fill everybody else in, because I'm sure you all get calls once in a while on property maintenance also. Well, let me move my adjustment here. There we go. If somebody knows how to play the system, you know, they can drag a property maintenance complaint out for a long time. For instance, I mean, if you, and Dave, you can back me up on this. I mean, if somebody comes in and let's just say in April, they haven't cut the grass. So we get a complaint, or Rick will get a complaint and he'll respond. Well, if nobody responds, you know, you give them a reasonable amount of time, usually 30 days. By the time it gets to court, probably a month and a half. Then it goes to court. They don't show up. Grass is still growing, still not cut. So then, after the capias is filed and they go and can serve the capias, and the guy shows up. Now he shows up and asks for a continuance because he wants to get an attorney. Correct? Am I right so far, Dave? Okay. So as you can see, and then you can ask for, then the next time it comes to court, you'll set it up for a trial, comes to court, then, he's all, I still can't find an attorney. And so the judge usually says, hey, sorry, pal, that's the way it is. You gotta, what's your plea? Well, no contest. Well, now by the time all that happens, you're talking 2 or 3 months down the road. The grass is still not mowed. The neighbors are upset, and they think the city of Reading hasn't done a damn thing. When you can't, but that's the way it works. So, I wanted to throw that out there so that when you get these, the people, rightfully so, you don't want to live next to it. But now there's a way that if a person really wants to be a real jerk about it, they can play the system pretty well. So and of course, then if you got a rental property owned by people like Deutsche Bank, and I use them because they own a lot of property, nobody shows up. And the owner is out of town, so what are you going to do? So the only thing you can do is to pass an ordinance of need, I believe, I think it's an ordinance of need. The city hires somebody to cut the grass, go into that property after sending a letter and say, hey, we're going to cut your grass, we're going to charge you for it at our cost. And so that's what you can do. But then the city gets into the grass cutting business, and you have to think about that too. So that's kind of a very broad brush stroke in case any of you get, some citizen who says, hey, what's going on? Well, that's normally what's going on. Okay. And that's
comment on that, Dan, if I could. I haven't been a magistrate, but several years ago when I was a magistrate, I attended the seminar, Columbus,
yeah.
this issue, shed more light.
Yeah.
This is for attorneys that were magistrates up and we had a seminar up there at that time, and they had some people come in and explaining that they were developing state laws that were going to be able to allow municipalities or governmental agencies to move more rapidly, even on properties that should be condemned and taken. And I don't recall the specifics anymore. Dave still serves over in Wyoming, I think, as a magistrate. He probably is more up to date on this. But and maybe we as a municipal government should be more aggressive in getting these laws changed, or if we can pass ordinances ourselves that where they allowed you to move more rapidly. It was a method of acting in a faster mode that you could even, do condemnations and exercise powers to, this was something more critical than just grass cutting, but to actually demolish properties. And
right.
I do have to compliment our fire chief, Todd Owen. He's been very good about going out and going after properties that are in very poor condition over the last few years, and noticed that. Yes, and I'm real pleased for that.
The three, I'm sorry.
Just to every neighbor. Hope that that's still, or maybe it's out. Recall there was even court and some county in the state of Ohio could go and get some more rapid action taken to get something accomplished.
Right. Well, yeah. There's some. I won't belabor the point tonight, but the IPMC code is a very good tool to use. The fire department, they've got tools that we don't have. They can go a lot more rapidly, but you can take properties. The city can take properties. There's a process, but again, when you do that, you need to be aware. You have to put up the money to do whatever you're going to do, because you got to do it first. And are you willing to do that and go there? So that's the downside. You eventually can get it back, but it takes some time. So,
All
right. And I think,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, that kind of sums up, unless I'm open for any questions you got, if you want.
I have a question. Thanks for coming, Dan.
Okay.
Have a question. Are phone calls being returned in a timely fashion now?
They always have been. Yeah.
Well, I beg to differ on that because I
Okay.
contacted the office personally at the beginning of March, left a message about something at my residence, and then also something from my committee, and I never received a phone call back.
Really?
Yes.
Well, then that is bad, and I need to know that. Okay.
Another thing, you keep asking for a secretary or something to help with the data input, but I believe the agreement that the city has with you states that the office will be open for a minimum amount of time, not a maximum amount of time,
Mhm.
and it has a set number of duties. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to verify that, but yeah, anything you could do to ensure that phone calls, because I shared my personal experience, but through my job, I've heard from other people in the industry that they have difficulties getting phone calls back in a timely fashion as well.
If I get the phone call, I return it. And I will be real honest with you. That's one thing in 42 years of being in business, the one reputation I got is I am very anal about returning phone calls. So if I got it now, I will check. I will make sure. You was in March?
It goes to when I contact, I say, building department, please. Okay, he's out on an inspection because I
Yep.
contacted during a normal,
Right.
and I was put into the voicemail.
Okay.
I left a voicemail. I've heard that from other civil engineers that I work with, that they have had difficulties getting phone calls back in a timely fashion.
Okay. All right. Well, I will definitely look into that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Mr. Gertz.
Ironically, Dan, I had a client come in I was working on an estate, and she was employed by a business that has relocated from the adjacent community to the city of Reading, which I'm very pleased, unfortunately for the other community, but good for us, along Galbraith Road. And they've been having troubles getting their, I don't know what the issue is, and I'm not sure who's correct. I'm not faulting you for this, but I'm trying to streamline it if I can for the business. But they don't have any signage. They wanted to put their, I don't know whether the sign's too big or too small. It's an auto certain parts facility where you can buy parts and so forth on Galbraith Road. I don't want to get into the names and so forth, but if you could get into letting us get that resolved, I think that would be helpful as a new business. It's been several months or something. I don't know that it was accurate. She's not in a position of management. She's an employee there, but the feedback is that they're having trouble getting their approval of their signage so they can, the building, fortunately their customers are aware where they're located, but I don't think they have a sign up is what the person was telling me. I don't know what happened. If you can look into it, I would say.
Well, yeah, I can tell you, the only application we've got on our desk right now is for a sign, is for the one that's going to be the BZA tomorrow night or Thursday night. That's it. That's the only application we've got. So, if they applied for it, they may have gotten a letter that's rejected and they have to go to the BZA. I don't know. I'm totally unfamiliar with that. But,
well, if you give me a call tomorrow, I can give you the name, and I'd like to certainly don't want to make them feel unwelcome. They're
no, right, sure. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Lord
appreciate it.
Okay.
Anyone else for Dan? Dan, I thank you for all your preparation. The fees. One question I had: will the software actually provide additional fee revenue because you're able to do more permits? Are we missing out because of the software on permit?
No, the software it's just a matter of eating time. That's
Yeah,
all.
that's okay. It takes
We're not
time
missing-
from everything else. Okay.
No, we're not missing out on anything except time. And that's to Dave's point is that, I'm trying to find ways to get time in order to do more things that I think ought to be done.
Okay, understood.
And y'all asked me to be here, so that's why I told you.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Thank you
Dan.
very much for coming tonight, Dan.
All right.
And, if at any time anyone has a question, I'm sure they can send it to you and get the answers.
Yep.
More than once or twice a year, like we've been doing. So,
Right.
thank you for
Okay.
coming in tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. You too.
And you don't have to stick around, Dan. Don't feel like you need to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No audience participation, correct, Carla? Carla, there's no audience participation.
No,
Okay.
I have communications from
Okay,
the audience.
go ahead and do the communications.
All right, so we've got a couple of suggestions for the community development block.
Do we want to hold that till we're talking about that, or is this the only time we're going to be talking about it? Anybody have an idea what they want to do with this discussion? Patrick, you're the one who has requested comments and ideas from the community and from council. Do you want to go and do that now?
Whatever council, just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a specific time, but
Well, let's do it now then. Go ahead and read your communications, and then any other discussion on the CDBG, we'll do it now. Go ahead, Carla.
Email from Jan Schneider. Please consider updating the bridal district. It's old and drab. Bring some life into the area, and most importantly, clean the sidewalk and streets more often. Sandy Harsh. Hello, I have some thoughts about what to do with some of the $123,000 grant money. We are currently investing in the Reading Community Revitalization, an old empty building, to create a community arts center. We have to spend money to make it ADA compliant. We are spending money to create a space for children to learn and appreciate the arts, visual arts, to learn music, singing, and theater. We are spending our time and energy to create a space for adults to participate in performing in visual arts and movement classes. These are just a few of many opportunities our center will bring to the Reading community. Wouldn't it be great for some of the grant money to help us get this building renovated sooner? Thanks for any support the City of Reading can give to help us get up and running. Sandy Harsh, Executive Director of the Reading Community Arts Center. And then Katie had sent a list compiled from all of the Facebook websites and any communication I get to receive. So I'm just going to go through the list. These are all public suggestions, again, for the community block grant. Updates to the bridal district. It's old and drab. Invest in the new community arts center as part of the bridal district. Invest in bridal district. Benson Street, replace sidewalks, move poles underground. Acquire the remaining IGA property. Benson Street facelift, new sidewalks, remove weeks. Koenig Park facelift, new bathrooms, new picnic tables. Sewer lids on Benson Streets, westbound by Church Street. New curbs on Walnut Street. Pave the roads in the valley. Reflecting run over markers by Library Crosswalk. Curbs on Clark Road starting at Bridge. Street is level with curbs since it was repaved. Poles by school underground. Skate park. Replace trees on Benson Street. Replace the sidewalks on Benson Street. Better location for We Thrive. Handrails at the stadium. Turf field at the stadium. homeowner assistance to encourage people to buy homes, turn Sherryfield Park into a dog park, improvements to Koenig Park, safety improvements along Reading Road, fix sidewalk on Hunt Road that is sliding into the creek, widen Reading Road, updates to Bridle District. There also was a communication sent to Katie. Not sure if it's a suggestion or not, but it's from Shanti Smith. She says, would home ownership assistance involve helping those who are struggling to make payments due to COVID? It is in the best interest of the city to prevent private property from falling into foreclosure, but would have to involve some sort of application process. I also got a letter from Brian Wilson, but it does not have to do with the grant money. So if you want me to read that now, I can, or if you want to wait, I can.
Yeah, go ahead and do that one right now. It's separate from the other talk, but we'll get it taken care of.
Okay. City of Reading Council members, my name is Brian Wilson. I live at 236 Bernard Avenue. I am very excited for the business opportunities that have been presented to our city, but as a resident that will be directly affected by the increase in traffic to the specific area, I would like to voice a few concerns. When the Riesenberg Extension project was nearing completion just a few short years ago, Sabrina Smith and I addressed council to voice our concerns over the potential increase in semi-truck traffic. Our concerns were that the truck traffic would be a huge nuisance to the area. It would damage the newly constructed road much quicker, and that this kind of traffic wasn't ideal for a road parallel to Little League sports fields. Council's rebuttals were that the traffic would only be during normal business hours, there wouldn't be enough traffic to damage the road, and that we only had concerns for this because we lived right there. Since our concerns were presented, Riesenberg has needed 2 patch jobs completed. The telephone pole on the corner of our property has been struck 3 times that we're aware of by semi-trucks coming down Bernard, turning right onto Riesenberg. The stop sign next to this pole was struck and completely knocked down by a semi-truck turning left onto Bernard from Riesenberg. The Little League sports were moved to different fields throughout the city and other neighboring cities to accommodate the truck traffic. And the traffic has been 24/7. We have as much video proof as you need if you're skeptical. As I'm writing this email on 11/9 at 5 p.m., a dump truck just ran the stop sign right in front of a Reading police officer. If that's not enough, a semi-truck then proceeded to run the stop sign right in front of a Reading police officer. Both vehicles were indeed pulled over. As I stated before, we are absolutely excited for the new business opportunities, but we would like the city to truly consider rerouting a semi-truck traffic to a street other than Riesenberg Avenue. During the Nair Port presentation, the presenters were not even aware of Landy Lane as an option for this traffic, which was very disappointing to learn. The plans for the Riesenberg Extension project displayed a sign at the corner of Columbia and Riesenberg that stated no trucks over 3 axles. This sign was never installed, and I've personally never heard the reason why the city decided to go against these plans. During the Riesenberg Extension project, Mr. Tony Gertz mentioned Cabot Drive on multiple occasions. I believe this new project is a perfect opportunity to have the bridge redone on Cabot Drive to access the potential business area. And the Nair Port representatives mentioned that there are many great opportunities for projects such as this. The city was able to obtain a $300,000 loan at 0% interest for Riesenberg Extension, so I am sure there are many options available to ease the financial burden of a project like this. Please consider these concerns of relocating the semi-traffic away from the residential areas and onto more appropriate route. Thank you for your time, Brian Wilson, 236 Bernard Avenue.
I'll make a motion, we receive and file that letter, please.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz to mark that letter received and filed. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Miss Adichico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that mark that one. Does anyone have any comments about adding to the block grantor, or comments about the common themes there?
I'd like to back up and recommend that that letter be presented to the safety committee and invest all those questions that Brian raised, because he is correct. The original plans, was, that if you look at it, had notations that the limited number of axles that could use that road, it never was installed. And of course, all the things that he's saying in there, I totally agree with about the traffic. So I think at least we ought to receive a pilot and investigate it through the safety committee or any other councilman, which I'm more than happy to.
So I got a motion made by Mr. Gertz to put that letter into the safety committee for a review. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell. On favor?
Aye.
So Randy, that'll be in your committee to take a look at that.
Yeah, can you send that to me, Carla?
Already in your inbox.
You already
Thank you.
sent it. Okay. Okay, any comments about the block grant?
The only comment that I would have, Chris, is it seemed to me, and my memory's not as good as it used to be, that we were looking into trying to continue projects to alleviate the floodplain so that these residents are not burdened with the additional insurance with this money.
And I'm sure Mr. Ross will be looking at those types of projects. I thought there was some discussion last time around one of the gentlemen who used to work for the Mill Creek that did contact Mr. Ross. Can you go over that again, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, Jim Moyer, who works for the engineering company that designed the first bench. I reached out to him. We had a lengthy discussion about kind of next steps. Right now, talking with him as a professional engineer, I'm not a professional engineer. The feasibility of doing one in a timely manner, even with the amount of money that we have, is not. It's not a feasible thing to do. He said that the project that we did this time was under 400,000. Any other projects would likely be much more because it's going to be a bigger area. So, we need to gather more sources of money, get more partners. One potential partner in the future, a big one, would be the Conservancy District, who there is talks of them becoming the owners of taking ownership from the Corps of Engineers here in the next couple of years. And then I think we need to make sure we're analyzing, to make sure that the projects that are being done are having the intended impact that we would have. I would like to invite him to come to a future meeting just to discuss this project, and they can go over kind of what impacts these would have. But my opinion is, if we just say we're going to, it's wonderful to say we want to do that. Yes, I agree. But we have to have money. We have to have a feasible project that can be done. And right now, those are not feasible to be done in the short term.
And for that low amount of money.
Patrick, why couldn't we take that money and at least clear more of the Mill Creek? I think it wouldn't take much of a plan to take some of that honeysuckle and those sort of things and get rid of them. I think we could get rid of a lot of that with $120,000.
Just clear. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what that benefit would be, Don.
It would to continue.
Certainly.
Next
Yeah,
time we have some money.
I also
What
think
was the
there's
benefit,
other
Don,
projects
again?
to put this money towards.
Chris,
Whether
I got
that
a few
would actually
comments
have
on
an
that.
I would like
He's
to
along
see
the
Don,
road.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Floodplain,
acquisitions of dilapidated buildings in
non-engineered
the city.
opinion based on everything I've heard from
I
them.
lost Don here.
to impact the floodplain.
639 arms.
I may have missed that, but I
You know, there's some,
it
what's
says
that?
internet connection is not very stable for us, or at least for me, but I had some comments if we could get to it when I get a chance here, Chris.
Okay.
Well, first of all of these proposals that are being submitted currently by Mrs. Edichico or any other person that I had a few of them that came to me as well concerning many of these issues. This has nothing to do with the money that has already been allocated for 18, 19, and 20. We already agreed as council a few years back, or whenever we got into this, that the current money, which is frustrating to me, I'll be blunt, because we're now getting talk about use of this, and we got to have an answer, I believe, before the end of December of how we're going to spend. I got a great source. Bob Ashcroft does a lot of research, and he's retired now, so it's even better yet. He's talked to some of these people, community development block grant agencies, and he gets background on it. This money that was supposed to have been spent for 18, 19, and 20 was, I think, the $120,000 or $30,000 was to be spent for flood remediation. And I think where we've dropped the ball, we don't have a plan. We don't have anything submitted. I don't agree with Mr. Ross about what we can achieve or not achieve. These people, we had a grant a few years back for 18 or 20,000. I forget the name of the guy in the firm, but came up with several ideas along the Mill Creek to help flood remediation. And Don Lindeman pointed out to me today, we have people paying a heck of a lot of money for flood insurance. And Larry Calhoun, for instance, up on Jefferson Avenue, he's never been flooded ever. He has to pay flood insurance. And many people in the valley here are paying for flood insurance in various areas. So SOS building that now is going to be with Sandy Harsh, which I'm glad to see something's happening there. But one reasons they have them ready one time. By the way, community development block grant money has to be used for something that relates to some kind of low income or depressed area. So I'm not sure that we can even do so many of the requests that are being listed here and submitted. But to get off my subject, the money that should have been allocated, we had 3 years to decide how we were going to do that. And we could have banked that with some other agencies. Linda Fitzgerald, in my opinion, does a great job finding other sources. So if you had to take the 130,000 and went out and got some other sources of revenue and given them opportunity, we got 6 weeks now or something to come up with something for the end of the year. Now they did, because of COVID, allow us to not have to spend it till next September of 21. But if we don't spend it by next year of 21, we lose all that money. And you talk about the rest part, that was a fiasco to begin with. I mean, we took money from wrong funds, paid architects, and then we ended up buying big toys, which, Tim Cox and other people that have young children are probably happy about that. But that was $175,000 supposed to go to the room down at Caney Park. And I see one of the things on the list, that should have been done when it was first allocated in 3 years. And the previous 3 years before the ones that we're finishing up now. So it really kind of frustrates me that we don't have anything on the board, and we're talking about, well, we can't get anything. We want to go pave a bunch of streets, which I don't have any objection, but that's why we have a curbs and gutter fund that we go out and get grants upon to do. And this is really frustrating that we're now, and within 6 weeks, we got to come up with something to spend last 3 years' monies. The projects that we're talking about here that's being submitted, now they don't require a public hearing this time, but many communities had public hearings. And I know this is supposed to substitute that, but this should have been done also before the end of the year. And now this is going to be for the
we
next
need
cycle.
to get to a point of where we're doing something.
Let me finish arguments and all you want care, but I'm very frustrated about not getting anything done rapidly. And here we are, we're talking about these other projects, and I think they're wonderful things if we could do them. We just had, concerning the future proposal, I think it's 110 or something over there thinking. many of, we cleaned about 2 or 3, agree about that. But most of those would even close to them will not. And again, I think that money should be used for flood remediation and help people who are paying way too much for their flood insurance and try to take care of those issues. But here we are with that. That has to be decided in 6 weeks. We're letting these things get away from us way too quickly. We already decided to do what we were supposed to do for 18, 19, and 20, and there's a project on the
Mr. Gertz, you've been
now we got to
breaking
do, I think, the same thing. Like 21, just let me finish. 21, 22, and 23. I mean, we're dropping the ball. We're looking ridiculous, and I hope we don't lose all the money. If it wasn't for this being brought up and brought to the forefront, I'm not even sure we'd be where we are trying to discuss these things, to be blunt. And it's frustrating. Thank you.
Mr. Gertz, you've been breaking up the whole time. It's really hard to try to follow what you're saying. Can you go ahead and log off and come back in? Maybe that'll help clear up I
don't know. I'm sorry if I'm breaking up. Can you hear me now? All right. I don't want to be.
You come in clear for about a minute, and then you're garbled for about 30 seconds, and that repeats the whole time you're talking. So just wanted you to know that we're not hearing everything that you're saying.
Well, maybe that's a prelude to what
like right now, I can't understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Mr. Fischescher.
Yeah, I just, from what I picked up on what Tony was saying, he didn't add to the conversation here. You're complaining about things of the past. Let's talk about this list. Let's try to come up with an idea as to what we want to use this money for and move on. I mean, it's all well and good to complain, but let's look to the future and let's look to trying to get this list narrowed down. I know a lot of these things we aren't allowed to do because that's not what the grant is for. I had a brief conversation with Patrick this afternoon with regard to some of this. And, I thought helping Sandy Harsh and Bonnie Rack, who are co-owners, it isn't just Sandy Harsh's, it is also Bonnie Rack's project, would have been a great thing to put it into, but unfortunately we can't do that with this block grant. There is a couple of dilapidated properties around the city that I would think would be a plus for us to purchase. The street, I'm not necessarily in favor of doing streets. I'd love to see something done with Benson Street because it does need to be cleaned up a little bit and stuff. I don't know, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't know what all can and cannot be used in these block grants, but I think Patrick has a pretty good grasp of it, and he could probably run down this list and tell us what can and cannot be used for it, and that would kind of narrow the list right there.
To be clear, this is the list that I posted on Facebook to get public comments about this. And I'm just relaying this information. I know that some of this, like paving, we do have the Streets and Curbs Fund for items like that, but I wanted to make sure that everybody saw the comments that were posted on Facebook regarding this. So I wanted to make sure all that information's out. But I agree with Randy. I like the idea of purchasing dilapidated buildings. And I do agree with a lot of these that Benson Street definitely needs an overhaul. I'm involved in the Bridal District. I know members of the Bridal District certainly agree with that as well. And it's, it draws people from all over the country. So I really think we need to look at investing in that in one way or another, whether or not this grant can go towards that or not. But I did want to get all this information out so that everybody saw that. I don't know if everyone was following it on Facebook or saw the comments. So
I thought it was a good list. A lot of things can't be done, but you got to hear the public. You did a great job there. Any other comments from anyone?
That's also one thing I've struggled with is the limitations on the money, what you can and can't do with it. I believe it's the census tracts. It has to be below a certain income level, average income, before you're allowed to use the money there. But if you're using it for handicap accessibility, you can do it anywhere. So there's, as with all government money, there's a lot of strings attached to it. And I guess I don't fully comprehend how exactly that limits what we can do.
Dave, you hit it on the nail on the head. Basically, the low census tract areas within our map are pretty much Reading Road, in the Reading Road and westbound. So anything, and I think it's closer to like the railroad and 2nd Street if you look at the census tracts. So you can do infrastructure, you can do new sidewalks, you can do road. You can't really do road repairs because that's just considered, you can't do things that are considered regular maintenance. So, someone mentioned railings need to be repaint, fixing a sewer lid, cleaning sidewalks, those kind of things are considered regular maintenance. But you can do, pretty much in the valley, you could do pretty much any road would qualify. There's a lot of little roads that have been asked for a long time. Roth, Anna have been asked for. Kaler Avenue, Benson Street, I think from Reading Road to Laughlin, is getting in need of it. And I do have a price from Benson for repaving the road from Reading Road to Laughlin. That's about $250,000 for the entire section. Now, I think the worst section of it is Jefferson to Laughlin if you drive it, but that would be something to determine. For parks, you can do, fairly pretty much anything at Koenig Park, Voorhees Park, because those are in the census tract areas. You can't do maintenance of those, but you can do new restrooms. I hear Mr. Gertz say it. I was all for it, and there's reasons why that got. The price of it went from smaller to larger. So that's what happened there. In the past, we've purchased a lot of dilapidated properties over the years since I've been here. One example is, it's now Lace Bridal, but that was the former gas station. We also purchased the old Kale feed mill. We purchased, another house that was dilapidated. So those are all eligible things to do. And then if we want to do parks up on the hilltop, they would have to be related to being ADA, making things more ADA accessible. So all of the new equipment that was done at Hilltop and Observatory was ADA compliant. That was why those were eligible. And I think those were well worth. And we also, even though it didn't need to be ADA compliant, we put in new ADA compliant swings at Koenig Park, which are the only ones that we have in the entire city. But you can't really do regular maintenance type things with the money. So, some of these wouldn't be there. I mean, I'd love to be able to do, help out, private companies, but, it has to be on things that are citywide and that meet the categories that you said, Dave.
So
A question.
let me have this for a second. So what you've asked for, Mr. Ross, was to get ideas from council. Have we done that?
Well, I would like it more narrowed down for the.
I was hoping that you might be able to narrow it with the discussion we just had around what can't be on the list of what has been presented, and then narrow it down that way before council narrows it down further.
Of the things that I've heard discussed, you can do streets and curbs that are in the valley. You can do purchase of dilapidated properties. Mr. Fischesser brought up one. I know of another second one that's very dilapidated. I do not know if we can just purchase the other lot that sits where the IJ was, because that's just I would have to double check if that would be an allowable use. You can do you could do anything at the parks in the valley, but someone mentioned a dog park, I believe, and a skate park up at Maple Tree. Those wouldn't be allowable, but you could, for example, where the old where the old tennis courts is, or the other spot, you could put in, an ADA accessible play structure up there. Whether or not the people in that neighborhood would like that, that'd be another thing, but that would be an allowable use for those. So streets, curbs in the valley, new sidewalks. I mean, you could extend, sidewalks where there's not, you could look into, doing at the north end, where it ends, extending that. I think I narrowed it down to about 3 or 4 things, right?
Patrick, can I interject something here?
I wanted to go to Mr. Powell first. I'll get to you next time. Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Sure.
You had actually covered my thing. I was going to ask Patrick if he could narrow that list down for us.
Okay, Mr. Lindeman.
2 things, Patrick. I like the idea of Taney Park restrooms again coming up. The other one, I hate to be secretive about this, but I think you need to talk to Mr. Gertz. We had a casual conversation today, and I think that it could be beneficial to the people in the valley, as well as all over Reading, about a building. And
I know which one you're talking about, Don.
Okay, well, Dan Brooks brought up that he needs more space, and he offered to give his advice on remodeling. So if you're aware of what I'm talking about, I don't want to speak for Mr. Gertz.
The one thing with that, the house, if we purchase property, they have to be vacant, and the grant does not pay for relocation costs. So that's why in the past we had a few properties fall through, and we were going to purchase 2 different ones along Reading Road, and you have to get an appraisal done before they'll allow you to spend the money. But we went by with an appraiser because the owner said, yeah, we're going to do this, and the owner, 2 separate owners, said that they were vacant. They were not. So the one you're talking about, I'm all for. I don't know, I'm still in favor of it. I just don't know if CDBG is the way to acquire that. I would be in favor of looking at other sources of income to purchase that property done.
Okay, well, I'm all in favor of those restrooms down there. We had one chance and missed it, so thank you.
Okay. So what's the time? What's the time on this?
Can I make a comment if I can be heard? I don't know if you can hear me now. I hope you can hear me all right. Are you hearing me all right at this point?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Tell me, raise your hand if I'm breaking up too much, but I want to reiterate what I said. We have flood remediation for 18, 19, and 20, and we need to have that put in place. $130,000. Now, granted, that we're talking about. Not hearing me? You're not hearing me?
Now we are.
Pardon?
Now we can.
Now.
Okay, I said we have to. I don't know what's wrong with this computer tonight, but nevertheless, the money that you're talking about, other projects, are for 21, 22, and 23. Now that also.
I don't think that's what we're talking about here. We're trying to spend the money that's coming due at the end of next September.
He's bringing up the current one, which is a good point. I think I brought it up at the last meeting. We can repurpose that money. I've talked to the head of the CDBG program down at the county. Where we've satisfied, the needs for as far as legal. My recommendation for that repurposing of that would be to do pavement in the valley of roads. I think Benson would be at the top of my list just because of how much that is traversed on a regular basis by people in the community and people coming to the community. That would be my suggestion for reusing the money from 2018, 19, 20. And then I don't have a strong opinion, for the next round.
But we need to start talking about the next round.
Well, first of all, I don't agree with you, Mr. Ross, that we redirect that money. It should be for flood remediation. And I think the property that we potentially acquire. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Not hearing me? Are you hearing
Not every
me?
30 seconds you go out.
Well, raise your hand. I'll wait it out.
That's what we did.
Thank you. The money could still be used for acquisition of properties that could be used for flood remediation. I don't want to go into detail because I think it would be raising our position to get the price go up. We can also sit down with the engineers that we've had that worked on the previous project. And I think if we develop something, that plan that we had that was approved, and we had, I think we spent $18,000 or $20,000. The grant that we had for that was for flood remediation along the Mill Creek had numerous locations and numerous ideas. And I think I brought it up at the last council meeting. The through the valley overpass is through the valley is going to probably through the valley. Okay. Well, I don't know what the problem is, but the through the valley overpass is going to be demolished. The through the valley overpass is probably going to be demolished. I hope, did everyone hear that one?
Yes.
Okay, so that all can be coordinated with a flood remediation program before the end of the year. Now, the other ones that we're talking about for 21, 22, and 23 also has to be decided before the end of the year. It's my understanding. And I mean, we could have another discussion about that. I think it's 100, it's less money, 110 or something like that. But to throw out the window what we already voted on, I think is inappropriate. And it's frustrating to me to see that we're not taking an aggressive approach to reducing people's flood insurance that have to pay that in the valley. And I grant you, it's care that did a lot of things. 1983, okay, 1983, okay, am I still being heard? In 1983, we project about 3 or 4 years ago, we went out and cleaned all the curb or the sidewalks up. And I think the Benson Street area is an excellent environment for growth for our city. But at the same time, I think we need to help our residents too, not just the business people that front Benson Street. And although that is well known, I don't think that's should be our primary goal with community development block grant monies. We need to help people get their flood insurance lowered. So I think we need key with what we propose, and here we could talk about that at another meeting. And so, whether we want to put John's in Mechanic Park, I agree with that, but we can talk at a later date. So, heard me for that. I'm finished.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of really faded hard on that one.
All right.
So what's the path forward here? Next meeting, are we going to? Everybody's going to pare down this list on their own and come up with 3 or 4 items.
No, we need to do that tonight, Chris.
Okay.
That's what I said the last meeting. We have to turn the application in by the end of this month.
Okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is,
can I comment on one thing?
Yes,
I was the one who brought up the through the valley at the prior meeting, as far as a future potential for flood projects. That is not going to be happening until later on in this decade. They have not even fully designed the plans for the updated through the valley part that would eliminate the bridge right over the bridge house So that's not that. And the current project, and I'm all for getting flood. I just want to make it clear that we just spent close to 400,000 and it did not remove, it's not going to have any impact immediately on any properties or any residents in the city of Reading. So that's what I think we should also make sure that we're not just spending money to spend money on things that sound good, but also have impact. That's why I think it would be important to have the engineer out here, because when he was out here, you know, he was unaware of the through the valley. He said that one of the biggest spots that would have the most impact, because when you do these bench projects, which the planning grant showed, you know, several bench projects being done along the Mill Creek. You know, according to the engineer, the impact is upstream. So we just did this project where we are, you know, it's not going to impact anyone downstream. So he thought one of the better projects in the future going forward would be down along Clark Road. You know, Don's familiar with the parcels. We own several parcels along the Mill Creek there where that company is, that has all the
Right.
holding, whatever those are called, you know. And then if you continue that northbound, you know, that's why I think, you know, in my discussions with, you know, professional engineer, you know, that would be a project, you know, that could see a lot of homes potentially positively impacted by doing a project there. But doing so, they're expensive. And I think, you know, ODOT will be most likely vacating a lot of right-of-way through there in the future, because that's right where the split is. So the plans for ODOT, you know, are going to eliminate that split. So, but that's not something that's going to happen in the next year or even next 3 years. You know, the guys from ODOT, that's a later on in the decade completion. So I was the one who brought up ODOT, so I wanted to make sure, you know, they're not tearing down the bridge anytime soon.
Like to comment, if I could, on that. I didn't suggest that was the only solution. I was aware of that, but it's the future. We're not going to solve all the problems for flood remediation in 1 or 2 years, but you are well aware, you should have been, that we had to have something on the plate, not having to rush this night. We already voted pre-council remediation and something. Okay, stop it. There should have been, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There should have been some plan in place.
Can you call in on your cell phone, Tony? Just go ahead and mute your computer and call in on your cell phone to join the meeting.
I only got the number where we're going to go into. I don't have.
Okay.
So.
All right. So what's the rest of council? I mean, you hear Tony and he wants to do something on reading me.
I think Chris, I think we could sit here and argue this back and forth all night.
Well, I don't want to argue. I want to get something done.
We should have done. Yeah, I would like to get something done too. You know, Patrick, what I want to know is, by now I'm half confused. Are we looking at this stuff for the 20 year, you know,
The
2020 month,
3 year,
or is this for the 2021?
21, 22, 23.
That's what I thought. Okay, because this 20 just kept coming up, and and if I recall, after talking with you, we don't have to specify exactly what roads. Right, we don't have to specify exactly what roads we'd want to do, or what properties we want to buy.
Correct.
Or what other projects. Just have to give a general X amount going to this, X amount going to that. Is that correct?
Correct. We could say that we have 123. We want to put 75 of that towards acquisition of properties and 25 towards, you know, road, or it would be closer to 50 towards road repairs or parks improvements. So that's really, you know, you don't have to identify, hey, we are doing, I don't need like, hey, we're doing this road. It's, we're going to do public infrastructure in low and moderate income area to our roads and curbs for this amount. And we're going to also acquire properties that are considered dilapidated. You know, and you know, you can also do demolition with the money. So you acquire, if you want to demolish it, then you purchase it and demolish it with that. So you can put the entire thing towards that. I can think of 2 houses right now that are extremely dilapidated, where we wouldn't be able to spend all. We would not be able to probably buy both properties and demolish both properties, but they're definite eyesores, you know, right in the heart of the city. You know, I've wanted to redo restrooms at Koenig Park for a while too. I'm still in favor of trying to get that done at some point, you know, more along the lines of renovating the restrooms, you know, keeping a men's and women's room and renovating them to make sure they are ADA compliant, rather than adding a third middle bathroom, how we did the last time. If you recall, we were just going to renovate.
That's where it went to hell, wasn't it?
That's what
Patrick?
That's what increased the cost. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but
Do you remember what the cost was
things.
just to have those? Do you remember what the cost was just to have those things remodeled?
$175,000.
No, that was to tear out the walls and add a middle restroom in there.
Yeah, but everybody.
I believe we could do it for 113.
Everybody voted for that middle room. I wasn't at that meeting. I'd have voted against it, but every one of the council members that were sitting there that night, 6 councilmen voted for that. If you get the record out. By the way, I'm concerned about, okay, we can talk about the next 3 years, but what's the project for 18, 19, and 20? We don't have a project. And it should have been flood remediation. And I think it still should be flood remediation.
I believe the president council wanted to talk about the next round right now. So that's what I thought we were focusing on.
We got to have it in. When's that one due? It's got to be done before. I'm told that CDBG is not real happy because we have nothing on the plate spent by November, and we have a project. I think we need.
Well, we got 2 things here. We keep mixing them up. We got a 18, 19, and 20. That's like 123,000, correct, Patrick?
No,
that is 20. That's the next round. 21,
okay, 23. How much do we have in 18, 19, 20?
About 145.
And what do we have for 20, 21, 22, and 23?
The max, it's a range between about 109 to 123.
Okay. So we actually have more money now that has to be spent by September than we will for the next 3 years. So let's talk about the bigger number. What are we going to spend the 145 from 18, 19, and 20 on?
I vote bathrooms at Koenig Park.
I'll second that.
I agree. I like the bathroom.
One thing to point out about the restrooms that I would like everybody to consider is that with the possible construction that's going to be going on up at Hilltop, the primary tenants of the 2 ball fields are going to likely be going away in the next few years. Is it the most wise decision to be putting money into those restrooms when once the prime tenants are, you know, would it be wise to even think about redoing the park totally at some point based on that? So that's the only thing I'm hesitant to spend money in those restrooms that, you know, we may want to be relocating or doing something different in the next few years.
I think park rentals at Canic Park are still will still happen, continue to happen. So I'm still in favor of doing the bathrooms at Canic Park, and then I'll encourage more rentals at Canic Park. And then we could look at other ways to improve the park once the bathrooms are redone.
I agree. And also, hopefully when things get back to normal, we'll have festivals down there again and more events. So we will need those. And as Tom said, if we, move forward and eventually improve the parks and the ball fields down there, they can be rented out for softball leagues and whatnot too. So they will be in use.
I agree.
Okay. So that's 3. Mr. Lindeman, do you have an opinion?
Well, I would be in favor of the flood remediation, but it doesn't seem like that's going to fly. And so if there's a second choice, I said it, sure,
Yes.
I'd like to have the restrooms done. It should have been done a couple of years ago.
Mr. Albrecht?
You're muted.
You were muted, Mr. Albrecht, and you still are.
I'm on
There you
now.
go.
Yeah, the restrooms seem to be what most of the council wants, and I think what probably a lot of the people in the community want. And I think, the future is going to be different than it has been, but it could be made better if we do something down there with the restrooms.
Okay. Mr. Powell, I think by my count, we're like at 5 for the restrooms out of 7. Do we have any arguments for not doing the restrooms?
Yeah,
I'm a little conflicted on it, Chris. And why I am is, yes, this flood remediation stuff, we're not going to see an immediate benefit, but down the road, stuff like that will pay dividends. The restrooms are something that we will see immediately. So that's the question. Do we want immediate gratification, or do we want something delayed down the road to improve the community? Both are an improvement in the community, and I would be okay with both, but I think that's definitely something we need to consider.
Well, part of the problem on the restrooms the last time was that we were in a crunch period, and the only bidder raised the price extensively, and we decided we didn't want to pay that much. So here we are again, maybe down the same path.
And have you all priced out materials lately? Things
It's
have really
ridiculous.
gone up.
One thing with the restrooms that could save a lot of money, and I know you're allowed to do this, our workforce can do some of the work and have the grant pay for it. Now, they weren't going to do the work before because it was going to include tearing down a wall, a lot of those, a middle wall and basically reconstructing. But you can have our public works and with a grant, pay for some of those things. For
That's
example,
great. I was going to bring that up, Patrick, because they did a great job at Voorhees.
yeah. So you can, when you bid out a project to an outside company, you also have to, since this is a federal program, there are, federal laws that have to be followed as far as the bidding, and there's a lot more requirements, prevailing wage, et cetera, that go into that. So, one thing with I know that, our public works can do some of the work and the grant could pay for it.
You just have to write the quote request saying, give us line item by line item pricing so that we can say, we'll do this, you do that.
Correct.
Okay.
Chris, I called the
Does that
vote.
satisfy Mr. Gertz and Mr. Powell?
We're at a crunch time again. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Time thing, and we got to quit being in a crunch time.
Well, yeah, I will agree with that. But we need to finish where we're at. We can't just sit here and talk about not being where we're at. We're here. We need to do something tonight. Mr. Ross wants to do something tonight. We're close to being unanimous. I don't care if we are or not. I think 5 is what we call a majority. Are we all happy?
I'm not happy.
That was for 2020, correct?
That was for 18, 19, and 20.
That's correct.
Okay, you got that then that's for Mr. Ross to go ahead and run with.
Yep.
Okay, so now before we leave, should we talk about 20, 21, 22, and 23?
Those are what
at
he
this
needs
point,
to
at
know.
this point, it should be the demo and flood remediation.
It's not enough money, is my understanding.
Well, if you combine it with
Right.
other projects, if we put it aside, you got 3 years to spend that. You just got to have the plan in place. So that could be seed money to go out. I've talked to Mr. Ashbrook. This has happened in the past. We didn't spend 300 and some thousand of our own money. Mr. Ross made that comment, but that was a grant that we got. We worked together with other monies throughout the state, and we got grant money to get that project finished. So if you
I didn't say it was our money.
money,
I said the next
Well,
project would be likely more.
I don't care what you said. Well, it could be
It
more.
would be
but if you
likely
go-
more.
Well, we realize that.
The next project's going to be bigger than the last one. It's going to be likely more money. Okay, and I guess you could throw roads into that too. Some valley roads that need to be repaired.
I think the Benson Street project is good.
That doesn't, in some areas where they're suffering over these, they like to have their streets repaired too. We spent almost $1 million up on the hill, and we're going to talk about $2 million on Thorn Ridge Drive. I think it's time to take care of some of the streets in the other parts of my ward and Dave's ward, and I think we could all other areas.
Didn't we just put together a list of streets that needed to be paved?
Yeah, that's a total different thing though. Those can be done anywhere in the city.
Yeah.
We can't spend
guess-
CDBG up in Ward 3 or 4 or even most of Ward 1. Probably half of Ward 1. The majority of where you can spend CDBG on roads is in all of Ward 2 and part of Ward 1.
West of Reading.
Benson Street.
Are we going to spend all the money on roads, or are we going to do vacant purchases?
So do 120,000 somewhere in that range.
I would be in favor of splitting it or dividing it up to purchase some dilapidated properties and do paving.
Yeah, you might be able to get one property and then something else with the balance.
I'd say list them both.
Yes.
Yeah.
I second that.
So
You have to list.
okay.
Anything else for you, Mr. Ross? Are we?
No, that's all, Chris.
We're good there? Okay. Anybody want to make a last comment? Good, you don't want to anyways. All right. Let's go to council committee reports. I hate to do this, but.
Chris, I'm going to
Yes.
ring off.
Okay, Dave, before you leave, do you have any comments or any?
I don't have a report. My brief's due for the Duke pipeline case next Tuesday. I'm going to go work on that.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Dave, before you leave,
Go ahead.
Dave, can you hear me on?
Not really.
Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious about the, can you hear me all right?
Pretty much.
Keep going.
Okay, I'm curious about lawsuit that we had with an employee. Could you give
Are
us
you
an
talk-
update? on
Tony, are
where
you
we
talking
stand?
about the thing with the school, or are you talking about with the Duke pipeline?
I'm talking about the city employee who sued us and basically Has that been resolved, and where's it stand?
It has been resolved and it was not in our favor.
I realize that, but we were trying to negotiate a settlement of some sort. Has there been anything achieved?
I don't have any input on that. The law firm that was handling that for us, I believe, was going to do that. And I don't know what the status of that is, Tony.
We are waiting to hear back from that person.
Okay, I'm trying to ask the law director the question.
Well, he doesn't know the answer, so
I think, well, I'm trying to ask him, Blair, and additionally, I think that the result of that was not positive, let's put it that way. And I don't know how we got to that point without some further analysis, even an investigation if necessary. We got ourselves.
Not sure what you.
Did you get that, Dave?
No.
I know what he's going after. He's trying to get a dig in that, you know, he didn't. The whole thing goes, I talked to Brian, and it goes all the way back to Hilling and some things that Hilling did. And there was some papers in his file that were lost. So it was like a whole conglomeration of things that came together that caused the thing to fail. Now, you know, to blame any one person is ridiculous. You know, can it happen again? Let's hope it doesn't. You know, and I'm all in favor, and I would be willing to take it on as my committee to look at that and figure out if there's some different way that we can do filing, that we can set this up so that it would not happen again. But what it boiled down to is that he didn't get, if I recall, he didn't get enough written reprimands.
Well, I don't want to go into the details, Mr. Fishhauser, because I don't think it's something we should speak on.
Well, you brought it up.
Mention what the part talked about it, about an employee up about making a dig. I'm worried about the amount of money that we spent to do some review, and I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Yeah, offline, that'd be great. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Mr. Gertz, do you have any disagreement to Keith? Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Can you give Mr. Gertz a phone number to call in on his cell phone so he can mute and call in on a phone?
Yes, give me 1 minute, please.
I've never had any problem before. I don't know why it's happening tonight.
Mr. Gertz, the only thing that I could possibly suggest to you to make this any better immediately is I can tell there's a little symbol that shows how good your connection is down by your name, and it keeps going yellow and red. If you turn your video off while speaking, there is a chance that your internet is trying too much to get your video, and it's kind of garbling your speech. If you turn your video off while you're speaking, it might help. I can still try to get that phone number for you, but it's an idea.
Okay. Well, I'll skip over finance for right now. Utilities, lands, and buildings, Chairman, Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you, Chris. I think we're going to talk about utilities later on from Patrick, so I'll save that for then.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lindeman. Any questions for Mr. Lindeman? Thank you very much. Zoning, planning, and environment, Chairman, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Chris. Construction continues on the Emberley Village North site where they're constructing the Lewis Animal Hospital. Last week around 6:30 p.m., there was a contractor saw cutting expansion joints in the concrete. They used a leaf blower to clean the dust off the concrete pad, and it sent a cloud of concrete dust onto Maple Drive on a warm evening when people likely had their windows open, as I did myself. Tonight, they were still drilling and compacting geopiers at 6:15 p.m. I contacted Amberley Village administrators and reminded them of their past assurances that they were going to be good neighbors to the citizens of Reading that live next to the north site. There was also, I had been contacted by a constituent about a parking issue at the top of Maple Drive. I contacted the safety service director, who provided me a copy of the ordinance that set the 3-foot distance from driveways. I think it was passed in maybe 16, if I recall. I went back and watched the council meeting where it passed and listened to the discussion to kind of understand a little bit more about the background of how it came to be. I've been observing the situation since I've been contacted, and I'll give another update once I've completed my due diligence on the issue. If there are any questions, I'll take them. If not, that's it.
I think that's a thorough explanation of what you're up to up there. It's tough. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Go ahead.
I guess, is there
I
any
would,
action?
you know,
Mr. Lynn, go ahead.
Is there any action that Reading can take if continued problems with the Amberley building it continues? Is there anything that Reading can do?
You know,
I think we just lost our safety service.
I don't know exactly what we could do with it being in a different municipality and stuff. I mean, anybody can sue anybody for anything, but you know, at the end of that, really the only people that make out are the lawyers. So at this point, it's kind of like you just have to kind of keep reminding them of what they promise, and you know, the next time Amberley wants something from us, you know, make sure we don't forget.
Okay.
Chris?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Fish-Hesher.
Dave, I was wondering if you would be willing to take under your committee some of Mr. Brooks's concerns as far as the software issues and possibly, you know, the relocation, getting them help, you know, just so that it doesn't die somewhere.
Yeah, that's no issue at all. So hopefully the communication issue has been resolved tonight. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
Okay, anyone else on council have a problem with putting that into Mr. Powell's committee? Then you've got it, Mr. Powell. Anyone else for Mr. Powell? Thank you, Mr. Powell. Laws and Contracts Chairman, Ms. Edichico.
Thanks, Mr. President. I have no report for tonight.
All right, thank you. And no questions also? That's fine. Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Fish-Hesher.
Thank you, Chris. For the police department, there was a hit skip auto accident at East Columbia and Hunt. A lady and her dog were struck by a car, which then fled. Police personnel followed up on numerous leads with negative results so far. Pictures of the suspect vehicle have been posted in the news media and also in social media. At West Columbia and Reading Road, a stolen vehicle was recovered with a female arrested for being in possession of the vehicle. There was a traffic stop at Reading and Galbraith. The driver was arrested for trafficking drugs. He had crack cocaine and fentanyl on his possession. While investigating for a breaking and entering on 11/2, our detectives determined a suspect and attempted to buy the items back, resulting in the recovery of more than $7,000 in stolen items from the breaking and entering case. The suspect was arrested and transported to the Justice Center. The police department has received a grant from the Attorney General's office for bulletproof vests. The grant will cover more than $13,000 of the cost. This will be in 2021. The department is still planning its Shop with a Cop program for 2020. Of course, that will be pending COVID. For fire and EMS, there's an ordinance on the agenda this evening for the purchase of the Lucas CPR device. This has been approved by the committee and previously discussed by council. Since I got it out late, we can make it a first read only if council would prefer. Patrick will be sharing, I think, exact numbers on the city's response to the current COVID spike in Reading. However, I want to say that cases in Reading have increased drastically over the past couple of weeks. I encourage everyone to continue taking the recommended precautions of wearing a mask, washing your hands, and social distancing. Just doing these three things will help curb the spread of COVID drastically. And then I want council to know that I've invited Chief Owens to be our guest speaker at the December 1st meeting. He will be discussing an ambulance purchase changeover plan for next year. That's all I have, Chris.
That's very good, Mr. Fishesher. I did know about Mr. Owens coming 2 weeks from now, so we're both on the same page there.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Mr. Fish, as you say, we had a great increase in are those people that tested positive, or are they people who actually have had symptoms and are in the hospital? Do you know?
They're not all in the hospital, but there is, just knowing people, there's a huge amount going around Reading for some reason.
Randy?
I think you
Yeah.
make a comment of huge. I don't want to get residents overly, I'm concerned, I'm 75 years old. I can probably suspect to getting it, but at the same time, I want to live my life. I want to be put in a position where I'm afraid to go outdoors and I have to wear a mask when I'm walking down the street. But so I'm a little apprehensive. I think there was 102 that the safety service director put out. I guess those are 102 that have been tested positive. If I'm correct, I don't know. I'd like to know those answers and how many of those people have had symptoms and how many have been hospitalized. There's what 11,000.
I would turn that over. Patrick.
Yeah, those are active COVID-19 cases. We are not given information whether or not they're hospitalized or symptom-free. The health department provides to our fire chief every night at midnight the list of cases. So these are active cases. So as Mr. Gertz mentioned, and I'll just go through what I was going to say in my report since we're here. We are, as of last night at midnight, 102 active cases. So looking back, just over a week ago on November 6th, we had 37. So it's almost tripled in about a week and a half. So that is the reason, and I put this out online earlier today, and I sent you guys email. Out of an abundance of caution, on Thursday morning, we are going to be closing City Hall again to the public. So starting Thursday through December 4th, we will be open as we were through the entire March through the end of June, in normal hours. But we ask anybody that has any city business to call ahead. Because we will not be open to the public to come up and in, but you can call us and we'll help take care of that. But once again, this was, discussions with the fire chief and seeing the numbers, go up. They were pretty steady for a while, and then, since November 6th, they've, like I said, almost tripled. But we are not given information from the health department whether or not they're hospitalized, whether or not they are symptom-free. All we are given is these are active COVID-19 cases in Reading. So we are not abnormal from the region as a whole. The region as a whole has seen, very similar spike. So it's not something, just for Reading. I mean, it's an entire region thing going on, but that is the reason. Starting after tomorrow, we will not be open to the public at City Hall. So if you have any issues or you need to pay a bill, get a hold of anyone between 7 and 5, you can call 733-3725 for the general offices for the water department. anything. If you need to get a hold of the tax department, their number is 733-0300. So once again, that is starting on Thursday for just over 2 weeks. And then we will reevaluate it, after December 4th on that weekend. So hopefully, as Mr. Fischer, said, just encourage everyone to wear their mask and try to distance as much as possible so we can get through this. And, I am hopeful though, there are good signs, positive signs as far as vaccines coming in here in the next few months. So, I think we just need to be diligent for a little bit longer, and then hopefully, early next year in spring, we can, look back on 2020 as something we can laugh about.
Patrick, the lockbox for water bills, et cetera, will still be open, and that will be collected on a daily basis.
Yeah, we will check it more regularly since we're not open. It's always, that's there 24/7 for anybody. And it's not just for water payments. You can put tax filing things, because the tax department 2, 3, 4 weeks ago sent out over 1,000 letters to people who have not filed taxes going back several years. They had until last week to get in here. So the majority of those people have responded, but I'm sure there's still some, but they'll be able to call, send in any W-2s, drop them off. So we are available. We'll work with people to make sure that what they need, is taken care of.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ross, did you say those are daily or weekly reports you get?
The fire chief receives them. He gets them daily. So, I have.
Did you send to, the city officials? We can kind of, I'll see how it's going to know.
There's a website you can go to look at it.
Well, I don't think they have Reading numbers, Chris. I
Okay.
think Mr. Gertz wanted just Reading numbers, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
I can give a weekly update to you guys if you'd like, because he gets the numbers. So, he has them in a nice chart here going all the way back to October 20th for me. So he has October 20th through November 13th.
Okay.
Obviously, we're a few days more now. That's why we're at 102. But yeah, I can at the end of every week, I can ask him to put that together and send it out to you, to all of you.
Thank you.
Hey, Randy, I heard you talk about the accident on Columbia Road. And of course, that is in my ward. And I've received some calls about people that live on Columbia about excess speeding on Columbia on the hill and different hit and run accidents of cars that park on the hill. So there's been a lot of concerns about the speed and the traffic on Columbia. And again, even with the light down on Columbia at Reading, which I've always had a problem when we made that a turn and a turn left only lane and a right and straight, I still believe we need a traffic study to be done there to see if there's a better option, because stop traffic on a hill is a dangerous scene. So I'm still in favor of trying to get a traffic study done on Columbia, especially at that light on Columbia and Reading.
All right. We can, we'll take a look at that in committee, because there's some other things on Columbia Avenue. I am really looking hard at seeing if we can stop all truck traffic at Cross County Highway instead of bringing them down. Right now, trucks can come down and go down Benson Street. And I think we should do away with total truck traffic on Columbia and Benson both. Just keep them on the highway. But we'll discuss that in committee. I got a committee. We're going to have to meet anyway, because police chief needs to meet with us. So we can discuss that then.
Well, in regards to that, I would like to know how many trucks actually exit that, because I don't want any companies ready to be hurt because of that. But I mean, that's something that I'm willing to discuss. But again, I think traffic studies, trying to capture that number, capture what we're seeing with trucks and that traffic at that light and the dangerousness of that hill right now is something we definitely need to look at in the safety committee.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and thank Mr. Fischer for his report and go to Service Chairman, Mr. Alburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another very quick reminder for people not to park in front of their piles of leaves or their neighbors to park in front of them if you want them to be picked up. I've seen quite a few piles throughout the city where they were rather large, where there was a car parked in front of them. And I've seen signs where what we said was that they won't pick them up if there's a car parked in front of them. Leaves from front and back have been picked up, but they weren't because there was a car parked there. So please, if you want your leaves picked up, make sure that you are not parking in front of them, nor is anybody, any of your neighbors, anybody else parking in front of them, because they will not get picked up. So, and the leaves are out, so that's, and they're coming down. So it's important to get that done before the snow comes. So, and that's it for tonight.
All right. Any other questions?
Hey, Dennis?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Dennis?
Yes.
Are they still staying on schedule as far as doing the routes the same as garbage pickup?
I don't think they have a schedule. I think that's what they would like to do, but I think they just do it as they can. You know, they just start off and then do it depending upon, you know, what's there, how much is there. That's what they used to do. That's what they planned to do in the past, but I don't know if they really do it that way in reality.
Okay.
Hey, Denny,
Yes.
do you know whether the service department's had any success? I don't know. I guess you're still working to try to, I know they're shorthanded and that's part of their problem. And what's the timetable? Do you know any timetable of new hires or what the goal is? I know we're short of cash, but we have fewer people, and I don't know what the timetable is. I think we're replacing a mechanic. Is that happening? Do you know?
I'd have to ask Mr. Ross. I know that I'm sure they do that every week at the meetings that they have, and I've mentioned it here and there. So they still need one.
Am I on mute?
No, you're fine.
We are in the midst of hiring another person from the list that we already have. That we are going to be redoing interviews and adding a few people, so we didn't have to retest. I don't have the exact date when because Daryl scheduled the interviews with the people, but likely the person will be hired by the beginning of the year.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Albrink. And in Recreation, Chairman, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you very much. I have a short report, just basically that the Hayfie Fieldhouse is closed until further notice. Some of it because of the COVID issues that are happening in Reading. As most of you know, that Reading High School is currently going all remote, and sports have stopped at Reading High School. So VYO also followed suit. So they stopped their basketball season for now. So Hayfie Fieldhouse is currently closed, and there'll be no adult activities either. So that is all I have to report at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lynn. And Finance, Chairman, Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a short report. It's getting late. We did not have any phone contact that I'm aware of. Maybe Sabrina can shed more light on it. The treasurer is tied up at the Board of Elections where he does work, so I don't have any current data. that I can share with council. But I'm confident that we're still
way behind of what we had hoped to have. Of course, it's all because of the virus. We were projecting somewhere 3 to 5% increase of revenue, probably going to come in about several percent below that of last year, not that 3 to 5%. So I'm guessing our revenue will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5% less than what we took in last year, which makes a tight schedule. A tight finances for us to try to meet our obligations. However, I do think that we're going better than we probably anticipated overall, because we did not have any phone conferences the last several weeks because, as you should be aware, it was announced, we were prepared, if necessary, to go out and get short-term financing. I compliment Sabrina and the treasurer for the good work that they did in securing basically contacts that we could immediately get ourselves in a good financial position and borrow funds if we had to. So right now, I don't anticipate anything that's going to happen. I hope before the end of the year, maybe Sabrina will shed more light onto it. I am curious. I want to do some things to investigate too, and I'll get with Sabrina, but the whole thing with this pipeline that's going through town, I know we've gotten several grants from the Duke company, and maybe Sabrina later I could talk with you about if you can confirm what they were and how much they were. I know there's certain citizens that totally oppose this pipeline, feel that many communities were getting grants that were, I guess, to seek favor for communities to go along with this. I think this whole pipeline's a mistake going through Reading, and I think most of us probably agree to that. But I hope we're not being criticized if we've accepted various grants that appear to at least be to coerce us at least, or suggest that we should cooperate. And that's all I have.
Hey, if I could just add, Chris, can I just add a couple things?
Yes.
I don't have the percentage that we're down, but I do have the amount that the treasurer's office brought in. There was $575,000 for October, and there was $18,000 in refunds. If I look back to 2019, there was $511,000. So we were up on the month, but I don't know the overall. Plus collection, of course, as we know, is pushed back or pushed up, and changes for quarterly stuff over the past couple of years. But we ended the month with about $558,000 that we brought in.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Yeah, I think Mel said he'd get something out next couple of days. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Gertz. We did have a couple of new business things that happened this evening. Mr. Powell's going to be looking into the building department and getting that report. I guess from Carla. You did get something. I think everybody got the stuff from Mr. Brooks. So you'll be looking to see what you can help out in that department. Was there anyone else's committee that ended up picking anything up? I thought maybe Mr. Fishhesher did also.
I've got a couple of things I'm going to be looking at, Chris.
Okay. So anything else from anybody that want to put it into another area? Tom, I thought maybe you would be able to look and see if the fees are being paid right instead of having Tony look at that for Mr. Brooks's analysis. So I just didn't. I thought maybe I was going to hear you say, yeah, those are the right fees to July 2019. Is that right?
Well, I think the fees that he's using are the right ones that we passed. What I'm worried about is it's not on our website. Those fees are correct on our website.
Okay, so that might be something. If you could let me know, I will. I can work with the person who takes care of the website to get that updated. So if you would,
Chris, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lennon.
You think Patrick could request from Duke names and addresses of those people that would be affected by the pipeline. And they know exactly where it's going to go, so they know, whose house it's going to go past. I would appreciate if you would request that and provide that to council.
What we talked about earlier, Don?
Yes, but this is a little different. This is the names and addresses of the people that will be directly affected. If it's going to go in front of my house, I want that name and address.
You are aware that Duke was required to do that already, right?
I'm required, but I didn't see it, and I'd like to have copies of it.
You want copies of what Duke sent to the people who?
No, I just want their names and addresses. So if I take a walk and I can ask people questions, I need to know the names and addresses.
Okay, that's going to take a little bit of time. There's not like an easy report. There's a lot of houses on 3rd Street, so that's.
I'm sure the Duke knows exactly who they are, so it shouldn't be too much trouble.
Are you wanting Duke to provide that?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah, make a request to Duke.
Right, that's what I was asking.
Sorry, I thought you were asking me to provide a list of all the names and addresses.
No, I'm hoping that
Well,
they'll give it to you.
and you can get that probably by calling Duke.
I'll send them an email when we're done here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Chris, I'd like to make a motion that we go to executive session
Okay.
in order to discuss contracts.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fishhesher, seconded by Mr. Lynn to go to executive session for fire department contracts. I'll take a roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fishesher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
We will go to executive session at 9:50. So just leave your screen up and make that phone call. Don't use a 1 before the number.
Mute yourself.
Please mute yourself.
Everybody has to be muted.
Please
yes.
mute yourself and turn your camera and turn the camera off for the time being, please.
Could you give me that number real quick? I think I have it, 253-993-3240. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
3240.
Welcome to My One Number. If you are the
Just turn on your. We'll see who gets here last.
I'm back.
Yeah, we'll see who gets here last. So she goes last.
Return from executive session.
So here's
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Mr. Fishesher to return from executive session at 12:02. I'll take a roll call.
Well,
I'm sorry, 11:02. No, 10:02.
I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes, and I want to drink what Chris is drinking.
I think you already do.
Mr. Fishesher,
Yeah.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Then we return at 10:02 from executive session. Reading of any resolutions?
There are none.
Oh, I forgot. Reports of officials. Safety Service Director, Mr. Ross, do you have anything else? I know you've been talking the whole night, so.
I don't have anything else that I was going to mention what I already added earlier about City Hall and COVID. So I do not have anything else. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Ross, I had a question for Mr. Ross. Hello, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Can you hear me, Mr. Ross? All right.
Yeah, he's on mute, but go ahead. Yes, he can hear you.
Oh, yes.
I made a phone call and you didn't call me back, but I'm wondering about that adjacent property owner that I brought up. Has the administration explored that at all in more depth and come up with anything, or what is your, you have, does the administration have a position on that question, or should I pursue it?
I think it would be worthwhile for the city.
That's all I need. As long as I know it's in work in progress, I can communicate with the gentleman and if you can get back to me sooner than later, and what the game plan is. I mean, I'm not at liberty to bring it up. I don't want to do it in open forum, but I guess if you want to.
Would you like me to talk to him directly, or do you want to stay talking to him?
No, I don't have any authority to do anything with him. He just called me. It's in my ward, so I know him very, very well, but I think it'd be appropriate for the administration to contact him. And
okay. Well, I didn't want to overstep my bounds. So yeah, I'll reach out to him.
I don't have any authority to do that. What is the mayor's position on this? I never see him or talk to him.
He is. He's also supportive. He thinks it would be worthwhile.
Okay, you can get the tax duplicate value. I think I gave you that, didn't I?
Yeah, I have that. So I'll reach out to that person.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ross, and Auditor Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few updates. I wanted to let everyone know that we have 2 ordinances tonight for payment that is due on December 1st. One is the dump truck bonds, and that is the payoff for that will be in 2021. And then the streetscape bond, that payment will pay off in 2023. Unfortunately, that bill gets to me super late. We're already sitting on the 17th of the month, and I don't have it yet. So I just tried to make it, as high as it would go. That's why there's the range in there, but it'll be under that amount for sure. But the principal will stay at 50,000. The only thing that would change is that 15,000 range I put in there. It'll be under that, but whatever day they print it and then send it is the day I'm at the mercy for the way they calculate the interest. So I know that's a long story believe me, I'll let you know what the updated amount is. I just have to have it passed. Purchases will be cut off for all departments as of December 4th. I work with all department heads to get that done, and then I'll make a bunch of payments that weekend and then try to talk about some of the things that always come in later in the month. So that way Patrick can do his part with the general fund. I can do my part with the non-general fund for the county. So, and that's something that you guys will have to approve as well. I'm already getting ready for the GAP for 2020. This is the smaller form of the audit that helps get items organized for the 2-year audit. So I'm not having to always think back 2 years ago when the next 2-year audit happens. I've asked about being moved to every year audits, and that's just not something that they're doing because of COVID right now. And we have to have a couple steps to get that changed. But I actually wouldn't mind an every year audit because then it gets everything done and out of your brain. So that's it for me, and thank you guys very much.
Sabrina?
Thank you. Someone have anything for Ms. Smith?
Yeah, Sabrina, that's a Reading Road streetscape bond that we're paying tonight on. I forget, I think the Benson Street is, that was 2022 or 23. Is this, do you know when the final payment is due approximately is this Reading Road?
For this one is 2023.
On this one, Reading Road?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. We will go to reading of ordinances. We have 4 ordinances. If there's something that someone needs to add, please go ahead and make a motion to add it. But otherwise, let's start with number 1.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to execute utility easements, both permanent and temporary workspaces easements on behalf of the city of Reading and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring.
I talked to Patrick about it. He doesn't have a problem with holding off and just making this first reading.
Okay. I did hear a motion by Mr.
I'll
Fischescher.
withdraw the motion.
Okay. Then this was just the first reading for the Duke easement ordinance. We will go to the second ordinance.
Ordinance authorizing the payment of funds in the amount of $20,950 from the Motor Vehicle License Fund to pay principal and interest on the dump truck acquisition bond and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the rules that require a second and third reading.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Mr. Lindeman to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading. Roll call.
Wasn't me.
What?
Mr.
I think it was Lynn.
Done.
Mr. Powell,
Who was it?
Mr. Albrecht,
Oh,
Okay.
Mr. Powell.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
I'll
Second.
second.
holy cow.
Hi.
Motion made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Ms. Edichico to adopt the ordinance. Roll call.
Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Ordinance as Pat is adopted. Ordinance number.
2020-44.
Good number.
An ordinance authorizing the auditor to pay the amount of $15,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund interest account and $50,000 from the principal account for payment with respect to Reading Road streetscape bonds and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring a second and third reading.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischescher, seconded by Mr. Powell to suspend the rule that requires a second and third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Edichico, seconded by Mr. Lynn to adopt the ordinance for the payment. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Yes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischasher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. The ordinance number
2020-45.
and our third ordinance.
Fourth.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to purchase Lucas CPR device. For the fire department and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend the second and third reading.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lynn, seconded by Mr. Lindeman.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
To suspend the rule, it requires a second and third reading. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr.
I
Gertz,
just, hey, I just was reading it. What fund are we taking this from? Oh, yeah,
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischasher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Motion
To adopt.
to adopt.
Who
I'll
said
second.
the other one? I'm gonna give this one to Randy. Motion made by Mr. Fischasher, seconded by Mr. Lynn. No.
Lindeman.
No. Don.
Yes.
Okay.
Made by Mr. Lindeman to adopt
Yes.
the ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
yes,
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischasher,
Yes.
Miss Edichico.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number.
2020-46.
There's a delay on Randy's answers always. So if he comes in just a little bit late, but you've answered first or made the motion first, sometimes I'm going to give him the opportunity. just the way it's going to be. With that, it's well.
Hey, I want to wish
12
everybody
now.
a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a
too.
safe and thankful Thanksgiving.
also,
Happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Healthy and safe. Yeah, that's pretty good.
also,
And thankful.
I would be remiss if I didn't announce, so I think many of the Republicans, we do have our monthly Republican Club meeting at 7:00 Thursday night. Any of the public that like to attend are always welcome. It's going to be at the old Sorrento's facility, Storm's pizza facility. So look forward to anybody coming there, 7:00 Thursday night. Thank you.
Okay. And any other business that anybody want to mention?
I just want to say that I think since we've gone to these meetings, we've got more done than we did the first 13 years that I was on council.
Well, I don't agree with you. The public really can't participate there. If we were to council chambers, I think it would be a lot more.
Well, I know you don't. That's why I said it.
Participate.
I'm sure you did. Glad you said it, because you and I don't agree a whole heck of a lot as it is, so that's fine.
I guess Katie's the reason we're getting things done then. That's all I got.
Yay!
Yeah.
We got a lot done. We
Oh,
got
lay it down.
13 years. You weren't around a lot of those times. We got a lot of.
Then this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Chris.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Keith.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
ya.
Thank you.